The Forrester boardroom felt like a pressure cooker, with every seat taken and every breath counted. Rich sat at the head of the table, his jaw tight and his eyes unreadable. Steffi leaned back in her chair with her arms crossed, looking confident even though her foot was tapping nervously on the polished surface. Eric watched everything in silence, his eyes moving between the faces of his children and grandchildren like a man watching a family portrait break. Ivy sat across from them all, calm, collected, and completely determined. This was not the Ivy who used to beg to be seen. This wasn't the woman who said she was sorry for wanting more. This Ivy had learned how to be patient, hold back, and pick the right time. Finally, the timing was just right. The numbers said what she meant. It was her idea to expand the business internationally. She had the sustainability line, bringing back a market that had been forgotten, hers. The silence was deafening when the final vote was counted. Ridge let out a slow breath. The board has made a decision. Steffi's eyes shot to him. Dad. Ridge raised his hand because he already knew what he had to say. Ivy will be in charge of the global brand direction starting right away. It was done. Steffi didn't try to hide how shocked she was. You can't be serious. Eric coughed. Steffi, we can't ignore the results. Ivy didn't say anything. She didn't smile. She didn't brag. She just nodded, her professionalism hiding the tremor under her skin. She had won. And for some reason, it felt like losing everything. Deacon Sharp sat alone at Illinois Giardino across town. The lights were low, and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator breaking the silence. He looked at the glass of bourbon in front of him as if it held answers he didn't deserve. Hope didn't even look at him when she left that afternoon. She had said softly, "You keep choosing chaos. And I'm sick of cleaning it up." Her disappointment hurt more than her anger ever could. Deacon rubbed his face, feeling guilty and heavy on his chest. He had tried to improve, tried to stay on the right path. But some habits and instincts were harder to break than others. The door behind him opened quietly. Deacon. He looked up and was surprised to see Taylor Hayes standing there with a cautious but warm look on her face. "I wasn't sure you would still be here," she said. He said, "I guess I didn't want to go home." Taylor thought about it for a moment before sitting down across from him. "Hope called me. She is worried." "She should be," Deacon said under his breath. "I keep messing up." Taylor looked at him, and her therapist side wouldn't let her stop. She said softly, "You're trying. That means something." Deacon laughed with anger. "Does it?" Something in her eyes changed. Kindness, understanding, and something else they didn't want to say. The silence went on, and then Deacon did something that would ruin more than one carefully planned life. He leaned over, and he kissed her. It wasn't on purpose. It wasn't planned. It was an impulse, raw, reckless, and very human. Taylor froze for a split second before instinct kicked in and he pulled back hard. "Deacon." He stood up right away and said, "I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that. I went too far." Her heart was beating fast. "Yes. You did." They stood there, the weight of the moment between them like a bomb that was about to go off. Taylor said firmly, "This can't happen again." "Never." Deacon said, "I know. I swear." But the harm had already been done. Some mistakes don't need witnesses to be true. At the same time, Sheila Carter went about her life blissfully unaware, humming to herself as she cleaned her apartment, sure that everything was finally coming together. Finn loved her. Or at least, she thought he did. Sheila held on to the smallest things, a call back, a polite smile, or a conversation that didn't end in rejection. She thought these were signs of progress. Proof that she was winning. She had no idea that Ivy's rise at Forrester was making people nervous. I had no idea that Deacon was falling apart. No idea that Taylor was losing her cool. Sheila smiled at the person she saw in the mirror. "Look," she said to herself, "they always come back." But the universe had other ideas. The fallout started the next day. Steffi burst into Ridge's office and slammed the door behind her. "You gave Ivy the keys to the kingdom." Ridge said calmly, "I gave her a job. She earned it." She's putting herself against us. Ridge looked unhappy. This isn't about sides. Steffi snapped. It always is. Ivy got a colder welcome than she had expected in other places. People whispered behind her back in the halls. People were watching her closely. There weren't many allies all of a sudden. Someone said, "Hope she knows what she's doing," and she heard it. Ivy acted like she didn't hear. Winning didn't mean being accepted. Taylor tried to bury herself in work, but she couldn't stop thinking about Deacon's kiss. The guilt was too much to bear. She loved Ridge, even though their relationship was hard and they had both been hurt by the past. This shouldn't have happened. But a part of her couldn't deny the spark, even though it was dangerous. When Ridge casually brought up Deacon that night, Taylor got tense. What about him? She asked too quickly. Ridge looked at her. Nothing. Just wondering if he's really different now. Taylor swallowed. I don't know. She knew a lot more than she could ever say. Hope knew right away. Something wasn't right. She saw how her mother didn't look her in the eye. The way Deacon looked like he was lost in thought, far away, and haunted. Hope finally spoke up when things were quiet at Brooke's house. Did something happen between you and my dad? Taylor's heart sank. No, she said too quickly. Hope frowned. Because it seems like something did. There was no answer. And sometimes, not saying anything was the most honest thing of all. At the end of the week, alliances changed, trust fell apart, and secrets grew. Ivy was at the top, alone but victorious. Deacon was in a downward spiral, one mistake away from losing everything. Taylor had a secret that could have torn her family apart. And Sheila was still dangerously unaware. For now.
Because in this world, not knowing was never a good thing. It was just the calm before the storm. Ivy Forrester had not thought about one thing. Not the politics, not the resistance, but the loneliness. Power didn't come with friends. It came with doubt. Every meeting felt colder. Every smile seemed planned. People stopped talking when she walked into the design bullpen. She could hear it in the pauses and in how people looked away from her. Ivy wasn't stupid. She knew what people were saying about her, that she had cheated her way to the top, that she had outsmarted Steffi, and that she had taken something that wasn't hers. None of it was real. And it all felt like it would last forever. That afternoon, Steffi was waiting for her in her office with her arms crossed and a sharp posture. Well, this is it, Steffi said. You finally got what you wanted. Ivy looked at her straight on. I got what I worked for. Steffi laughed. But it wasn't funny. You think this will turn out well for you? I think it already has, Ivy said, but she wasn't sure. Steffi leaned in and spoke softly. Forrester Creations eats people. And it always starts with the person who thinks they've won. Ivy sat down slowly and shook her hands when Steffi left. Winning was louder than losing, and it was a lot more dangerous. Deacon Sharp was falling apart all over the city. He had not slept. He hadn't had anything to eat. He couldn't stop thinking about the kiss with Taylor, not because he wanted to, but because of what it meant. He had crossed a line that put everything he had worked so hard to rebuild in danger. Hope came to Illinois Giardino without telling anyone. She said, "You've been avoiding me." Deacon let out a sigh. "I don't want to let you down." Her eyes were full of anger. "That's not how this works. You don't keep me safe by going away." He was very close to telling her then. Almost told the whole truth. But fear won. Instead, he said, "I just need time." Hope looked at his face. "Time for what?" "To help me understand why I keep messing up the good things in my life." She left not convinced. And the truth went out the door with her. At the same time, Taylor Hayes was barely able to keep it together. She called off meetings. She stayed away from Brooke. She couldn't even sit across from Ridge without feeling the weight of what she hadn't said. The kiss didn't mean anything, and that scared her. Taylor flinched when Ridge reached for her hand that night, even though she knew she shouldn't have. "Hey," he said softly. "What's wrong with you?" "Nothing," she said, forcing a smile. Ridge made a face. He knew her too well. "You're lying." Taylor had a hard time swallowing. "I'm just tired." But being tired wasn't the real reason. It was guilt. And guilt had a way of coming up at the worst times. Hope's doubts grew stronger. She saw how Taylor didn't say Deacon's name. How Deacon stayed away from Taylor completely. Patterns began to form. Pieces lined up. One afternoon, she went right up to her mother. "Did my dad do something to make you mad?" Taylor stopped. "No," she said softly. Hope shook her head. "You thought about it." Taylor's voice broke. "Adults make mistakes sometimes." Hope looked at her, and she realized that it was slow, painful, and irreversible. "This is about my dad, isn't it?" Taylor didn't respond. She didn't have to. And then there was Sheila Carter, who was still smiling and plotting, completely unaware that the walls were closing in on her. She heard people talking at the hospital. I saw Finn look away when her name came up. Felt the change but wouldn't admit it. She instead doubled down. She came without being asked. Messages were left. She made it impossible to ignore her. "They need me," she kept telling herself. "They don't know it yet." But someone else did. Someone who could see how dangerous her denial was getting. And what did that person do when they decided to speak up? Sheila's illusion would be completely broken. By the end of the week, the cracks were clear. Ivy stood alone at the top, knowing that power came with a cost she hadn't fully thought through. Deacon was just seconds away from losing his daughter's trust for good. Taylor had a secret that could tear her family apart from the inside out. Hope was on the edge of a truth that she wasn't ready to deal with. And Sheila was about to find out that not knowing something didn't mean she was safe. Because secrets don't stay hidden in this world. They wait. And then, the fallout becomes known. The kiss is very close to being seen. Ivy learns that winning is just the beginning. At a big press conference to announce Forrester's new global direction, Ivy Forrester stood at the podium, her voice steady and her presentation perfect. People who put money into things listened. Reporters took notes. Flashes from cameras. But she saw Steffi behind her, in a sea of carefully blank faces. Looking. Waiting. The question came from the back of the room. "Ms. Some people close to Forrester say that your appointment has caused problems in the family. What do you say to people who say that this choice has caused problems with leadership at Forrester Creations?" The room was quiet. Ivy stopped for just a moment. She said calmly, "There's always resistance to change. But progress doesn't wait for comfort." It was the right response. And the wrong time. When the cameras stopped, Ridge pulled her aside and looked angry. "You just confirmed all of their fears," he said. Ivy blinked. "I told the truth." Ridge said, "You answered politically. And this family doesn't forgive that easily." Ivy was really scared for the first time since she won. She wasn't just fighting Steffi anymore. She was standing alone against the weight of the whole Forrester family history. The truth finally caught up with Deacon across town. Deacon Sharp found Hope waiting for him at the restaurant after hours. The lights were low, the chairs were stacked, and the mood was heavy. Hope said softly, "Tell me what's going on." Deacon was tired and leaned against the bar. "You don't want to know." "I already do," she said. "I just need you to say yes." There was a long pause. Then he fell apart. "I made a mistake." Hope's breath stopped. "With who?" Deacon shut his eyes. "Taylor." The word burst out of her. He quickly said, "It was a mistake." "One moment." "That's all." Hope laughed, but it was a sharp, disbelieving, hurt laugh. "Nothing else. You kissed the ex-wife of my mother's husband. That's not nothing." He reached out to her. She took a step back. Hope's voice shook as she said, "I trusted you. I stood up for you. And now I don't even know who you are." That hurt worse than any punishment could have. Taylor didn't get to confess. She was forced to tell the truth. When Taylor Hayes walked into Brooke's living room, she saw Hope already there. Her eyes were red, her arms were crossed, and she was barely able to control her anger. Hope said flatly, "You kissed my dad." Taylor stopped moving. Brooke's head jerked up. "What?" The room fell apart in a mess. Taylor tried to make sense of it. Tried to put things in context. tried to make it seem like it didn't mean anything. But Brooke heard betrayal. Hope heard shame. And Ridge, when he got there, heard the end of the fragile piece he had been holding on to. "You let this happen?" Ridge asked Taylor in a low voice. She nodded, and tears fell. "I'm so sorry." Ridge didn't shout, which made it worse. "I believed in you," he said. "And now I don't know how to look at either of you." He left. And the door didn't slam, it closed softly, like a final choice. Sheila Carter felt the change before she understood it. Finn stopped answering her calls. The staff at the hospital got colder. Even Deacon stayed away from her. Fear set in. She confronted Finn outside the hospital, and her usual confidence gave way to desperation. "You are pulling away," she said. "Why?" Finn looked her in the eye. "Because I can finally see how much damage you do." She laughed too quickly. "That's not true." He said, "It is. And I'm done pretending I'm not." She could tell from the way he spoke that this wasn't going to last. Sheila had never felt the ground give way beneath her before. No longer clueless. It's just too late. Everything was in ruins by the end of the week. Ivy's win made her more alone than her loss ever had. Deacon lost the one thing he couldn't afford to lose, his daughter's faith. Taylor broke up her family while trying to keep it together. Hope stood there with a broken heart, having to grow up all at once. And Sheila had to face the scary truth that she had lost control. Nothing blew up. Nothing yelled. It all just fell apart. And what about next week?